Okay, I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of The Balance Breakdown. And today I am joined by the one and only returning, undisputed champion of this podcast, Jack's here. Hello, Jack. How's it going?
Thank you. I got really concerned for a second there that you was going to say Sean McGuinness, but yeah, thank you for putting me at ease.
And then we've got the scrub of the podcast, Sean himself. Hello, Sean. How's it going?
For a moment there, I thought I was going to be the champion, but I can dream.
You can, indeed. Maybe when you work on your single leg defense, we can talk about a championship shot, but there we are. Okay, so we are here to break down UFC 254, Khabib Gaethje, and I mean, what a fucking card, right? What an absolute card. I mean, actually, I look at it, and the more I look at it, the card is okay. I think there's some absolute bangers of fights on there, but there's some absolute drab on there as well, and I'm sure we'll get to those. We have my doppelganger making her debut on the UFC, so I'm really excited for that. But before we start, I just want to jump into a couple of news bits, and I want to get your thoughts on them. I've just seen on Twitter, Brian Ortega has made weight, but he shaved all of his hair off. Sean, thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, he's made the weight, so I don't really care. He looks kind of weird. I think without the hair, he looks like, I don't know, he looks a bit like an alien. But I don't know. I'm just looking forward to that main event, to be honest.
Excellent. Hot take there from Sean.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I don't really care like what hairstyle he has. As long as he makes it there and he doesn't test positive for coronavirus, that is all I care about with fighters at the moment, to be honest.
So let me ask Jack, as clearly I'm going to get a more intelligent answer, as clearly the question is garnered around, it must have been a tough weight cut for him to have to shave all his fucking hair off. But anyway, here we go. Sure, Jack, what do you think?
I'm with Sean. He's pound for pound one of the most attractive men in MMA. So it's obviously it's taken something significant for him to sacrifice his luscious locks. So I'm not really thinking about the fight, to be honest. I'm just thinking about the poor ladies who are going to be missing out on beautiful Brian.
It's going to change the views for sure. It's going to change. Yeah, it's going to change all of it.
I wonder if his Instagram profile will just immediately plummet through the floor now that his hair's gone. Anyway, we'll move on. Aljamain Sterling versus Piotr Jan has been announced for December. Early thoughts on that fight?
Anyone? God. I don't even know. I could see it's one of those fights where I feel like either way, someone's just going to get absolutely blown out. Like, I couldn't see it being a competitive back and forth sort of contest, to be honest. Like, I think if Aljo gets a proper sort of takedown early, I don't think that Jan has the grappling after he's been taken down to sort of come back from that. And equally, I don't think Aljamain Sterling, if he struggles to get his takedowns, has the striking to keep Jan at bay for very long.
Jack?
I'm actually agreeing with Sean yet again. I don't know why this keeps happening, and I don't really like it, but I kind of feel the same as well. I initially lean Aljo, although one interesting factor is, do we know where this is going to be held, right? Do we know if this is going to be at the Apex with the small cage, or do we know if this is going to be elsewhere?
Pretty sure it's Vegas.
Yeah, if it's that small cage, then I lean Aljo even more. And I think that's one aspect that we overlooked when we broke down him and Sandhagen. I think smaller cage means that Aljo's going to have a better chance of pushing Jan against the cage and therefore enforcing his wrestling. So that's my early thoughts.
I'm taking Piotr Jan. Immediate thoughts. I'd need to go do my research, but I'm taking Piotr Jan. I think it's Piotr Jan's fight to lose. The other fight that's been semi-announced is Dustin Poireir versus Conor McGregor 2. Sean, what do we think about that?
I really like it. Part of me is hoping that Conor McGregor will be able to come back and, give us this season that he's promised us all. But in the same breath, I think the issue with breaking down any sort of Conor fight at this point is you have no idea what that guy is doing when he leaves the gym.
Yeah.
And I think the first time he fought Dustin Poirier, there was more of a guarantee that he was actually doing the sort of things that a fighter should do and not, just snorting loads and loads of cocaine. So
allegedly.
Allegedly. But yeah, it would be interesting either way because Dustin Poirier's come on leaps and bounds.
Yeah, Jack?
Yeah, I think Poirier's definitely improved more since their first encounter, but I do think stylistically it's a pretty rough matchup for him. But yeah, we're all going to be rooting for Dustin, aren't we?
I think so, to be honest.
No one still likes Conor. Let's be honest. He's
I still like him a little bit.
Me too. Me too. I'm going to give you a hot take from Max Kellerman, who's obviously a big name in America. And he says that generally what happens in grappling and striking matchups is that the grappler has the advantage. Therefore, he's picking Poirier to win.
I just can't either. I don't even want to respond to that.
A little bit simplistic for my liking.
He said that the jiu-jitsu guy is going to win, and he's determined Dustin Poirier is the jiu-jitsu guy. So, yeah, there we go. And I'm gonna end on this, and this may be a bit of a longer conversation, but Dustin Poirier was supposed to fight Michael Chandler, but has come out and relatively openly and said that he's not going to do that because of fighter pay disparity. That Michael Chandler has been offered more. And he is on a contract that is worth more than Dustin Poirier is on at the moment. What do we think about that? Other than it's a fucking disgrace, right?
Yeah, if that's true, that's a travesty.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Yeah, so Chandler.
It's not the first time though, right? Like when they picked up Lombard was on a disgusting salary. Yeah. I know when a lot of the Strikeforce guys came over, they were on a disgusting salary as well, and I think that's actually a consequence of signing other promotions' top talents. If you think Bellator and Strikeforce were obviously looking to incentivize their top talents to keep them away from the UFC, and thus they were the highest paid people within the organization. And now when that transfer is over, it's a little bit unbalanced compared to the talent in the UFC.
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, no, I think the same as you. I think it's a travesty that, especially someone like Dustin Poirier that has been in the company for such a ridiculous amount of years. Yeah, like pre-Zuffer and everything else. It doesn't seem to make any sense. But like Jack's saying, it's the reason why you've got a lot of people who are in that sort of top 10 sort of range are leaving the UFC because the amount of money they're getting offered at Bellator just doesn't even compare. Like we saw Brett Johns a couple of weeks ago. I think he's now signed with Bellator, hasn't he?
Indeed.
You can't blame him if you are in that sort of middle range in those divisions and Bellator is offering you that much more money. Like, it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I just think that there really needs to be a conversation. Not even a conversation. There needs to be something that happens around fighter pay, right? And I don't know whether there needs to be more competition in the market, or whether there needs to be something that's regulated about fighter pay, or some form of union, or all three of those things. I just don't know. But I feel like there's something needs to happen. I mean, to put this into perspective, right? So Claudio Silva, obviously a well-known London not prospect, I guess he's 38, but a well-known London fighter. He fights against James Krause this weekend, right? And I had a look at the pay that he got for beating his last opponent, 13-13. What?
That's crazy. I also think that might be due, though. He debuted ages ago.
His contract before. It is.
Yeah, he debuted in 2014, I think. So, and that's, and I know they have like built into the contracts, if you win your first one, they'll bump you up to X and X. So I think, it's disgusting, to be honest. He's 5-0. And regardless of what you think about Claudio Silva and his potential, he definitely deserves more than that.
100%. 100%. And anyway, that fight is a banger, by the way. James Krause, Claudio Silva is a banger. But anyway, let's get into the first fight. So the first fight is, I mean, Jesus Christ, what an absolute monstrous main event this is. I wrote in my article, which will be up on Attack the Back soon, about how you're not going to find a fight that's more anticipated, for me anyway, that doesn't involve Conor McGregor than Khabib Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje. Like, this is just an absolute incredible fight. And to think, actually, I've had quite a few conversations with people that don't usually speak to me about MMA, about what I have in this fight and my thoughts on this fight. And, me and Sean have talked about it, and it's a mouthwaterer. So I'll set the scene just slightly. So Justin comes into the UFC after an incredible run with an organization outside of the UFC, comes in, tries to be the most exciting fighter on the roster, is the way that he said it. Fights Michael Johnson, fight of the year contender, then loses to Alvarez and Poirier, right? After that fight, he has a conversation with Trevor Whitman, his coach, and says, look, do you think I can be a champion? Trevor says, yes, you need to change your style. So Justin gets eye surgery and goes ahead, changes his style, smashes Barboza, smashes Vic, and then does the unthinkable to Tony Ferguson and stops Tony Ferguson, even though Tony was, standing and whatever. So we now are set up with Justin having been Justin 2.0, crazy power in both hands, crazy endurance, defensive wrestling, etc., etc. And then we have 28-0, arguably the most dominant fighter we have ever seen in the UFC outside of the Gleison T-Bar fight. Little asterisk there. Khabib Nurmagomedov. Right? He's fought the who's who at lightweight. He's beaten all of them, and he's beaten all of them in exactly the same way. Just an utter dominant fighter. Me and Sean were talking the other day, and we were talking about who our greatest fighters of all, our favorite fighters of all time. And both of us put Khabib Nurmagomedov in that list. Jack is going to find out is going to put some absolute no-name fucking Kazakh fighter that we've never heard of as 100-0 or something crazy in there, right? but yeah, like Khabib is an enigma. Now, obviously, the things we have to think about in this fight is it's the first time that Khabib has a camp without his father. It's the first time in his UFC tenure that his camp is solely in Russia, and that Javier Mendez has gone over. He doesn't have access to the AKA partners, etc., etc. What's going to happen when we get into this, I don't know. But Sean, tell me what your thoughts are.
Oh God, I feel like there's so many things to talk about with this fight. But one of the things that, yeah, I'll try my best. You know what a Khabib fan I am, but I think one of the most interesting things with this fight is that it's one of the first challenges for a while where people are seriously saying, this is the guy that could beat Khabib. And listening to some of the arguments as to why Justin Gaethje poses that threat have all been pretty interesting. I think especially the way people have spoken about his wrestling background going in and how that's going to impact. The general idea is that because of Justin Gaethje's sort of Division 1 wrestling accolades and everything else, he will be the best wrestler on paper that Khabib has faced, which, is true. I don't think that you can deny that. But in the same breath, he's a strange guy because there's not been any evidence you can really look at, especially in his UFC title run, where he's had to use takedown defense. Like, he's not faced one guy in his run up to the title who is like a grappling-centric fighter. Like, if you think of James Vick, if you think of Edson Barbosa, or if you pick any of those names, they're all strikers fundamentally. Like, I would have actually liked to seen Justin go against someone like a Kevin Lee, like a slightly downgraded version of someone like Khabib, or someone that just wants to grapple. Okay, well, very, very downgraded. But I would have liked to have seen it. I would have liked to have seen it before he went against Khabib.
Yeah.
But it's strange because I don't think that necessarily means that his takedown defense isn't there. I think that it is a legitimate argument in some ways, because the fight that this really makes me think about is when Johnny Hendricks went to fight GSP for the welterweight title. Like, obviously, in Johnny Hendricks, you had another Division 1 wrestler turned like power puncher sort of guy going against GSP, who all the evidence was there to show that in MMA, GSP was the better grappler. And I think Johnny Hendricks heading into the title had one takedown shot in him by Josh Koscheck, and that was it. So going into it, it was the same as this fight. It's like the evidence doesn't suggest that he's translated that well. But then you get to that title fight, and what happened? Like, Johnny Hendricks probably did the best job of anyone that's been against GSP in terms of really nullifying his wrestling and shutting it all down. So it's a tough one, because you know what a fanboy I am for Khabib. Like, if anyone gives me an argument, no matter how good it is that Khabib's going to lose, I usually just dispute it, just because I just can't handle that possibility inside my head at all. But it's a reasonable argument. But yeah, I think the grappling argument is an interesting one for sure.
Jack?
Yeah, Sean's made some excellent points there, and I think there's a little bit of uncertainty around Gaethje's wrestling pedigree, but there is also some uncertainty around Khabib's camp, as you touched on, Harry. Obviously, first time competing without his father in his corner, first time having a camp, at least in his UFC tenure, exclusively out in Dagestan. And we've also seen with his teammates in their recent performances, Tajir Ulanbekov fought last weekend, and Zuba as well the weekend before. I know Ulanbekov won, but it was probably a lot closer than at least the betting odds thought. And likewise, obviously, Zuba came away with a loss and looked a little bit flat as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Khabib performs, given his camp, given the preparation. And on the side of Gaethje, I have always felt that Gaethje had one of the better chances of upsetting Khabib. And even if we look at Gaethje 1.0, right? So pre-Vic fight, I felt the combination of kind of defensive wrestling, which he has always commended himself for. I'm not sure if you guys listened to him and Trevor Whitman on the Joe Rogan podcast, where Gaethje was saying that even in college, he was a defensively minded wrestler, went up against the likes of Jordan Burroughs, noted Olympian, and was able to stop Jordan's infamous double leg as well, at least earlier on in their matches. And I felt like the fact that combined with Gaethje's willingness to take risks and his power and his diversity on the feet, I felt could have been trouble for Khabib. And now if we look at the new Gaethje, who is a lot more disciplined, he's obviously got better vision. His footwork's improved a lot. He's a lot more patient. And I actually think he is a very, very risky matchup for Khabib, especially with everything that's going on kind of behind the scenes. You look at Gaethje as well. His camp's been killing it this year. He's brought in Usman as well, who will be an excellent training partner for Khabib. So yeah, I think my early feel is actually a slight lean towards Gaethje.
So I'll add a couple of things. I think the one thing outside of technical ability in the fight, and I want to get into that too. I think the big thing that we've got here is Khabib is known for being very selfish in his thoughts. And I don't mean that in a negative way. When it comes to fight time, Javier is like, I want you to stick to the game plan. And Khabib's like, fuck you. I'm going to do what I want. Right. And obviously it's turned out pretty well so far. Right. Pretty well so far. But the difference, I think, is the relationship that Trevor Whitman has with Justin Gaethje. Not only did you see that in the Joe Rogan podcast, but also against Tony, Justin comes in at the end of the second round and he's like, he won't go away. And Trevor's like, yeah, you're hitting him with 100% and he's not going anywhere. Take 20% off your punches and let's see what happens. And Justin didn't even question it. He was like, okay. And he went out and he did it. And what happened? He destroyed Tony Ferguson, right? Not that he wasn't destroying him the first 2 rounds, but, Tony had no offense and Tony was reduced to an Imanari role in the 5th round because Eddie Bravo decided that was a good idea. And we lead into this fight, right? And we're like, okay, where's the instruction coming from? Khabib now has the pressure of not only upholding his father's legacy at home, but also he's now the head coach, essentially, right? Because he was the closest to his father, the closest to the philosophies, and now everyone's going to look up at him as the head coach. Is he ready for that pressure? I don't know. We don't know. We just don't know. Does he even want that pressure? You probably don't when you're going into a fight with Justin Gaethje, right? And obviously Khabib has said all the right things, and he said the same thing of I'm going to take him to deep water and I'm going to drown him and I'm going to smash with an E. But who knows? I think technically where we're at is people are talking a lot about the leg kicks, right? Oh, Justin throws loads of leg kicks and he's going to get taken down. Maybe. The difference for me, from a technical perspective, of Justin's low kicks versus almost everyone else in the UFC is he throws them when your chin's on his chest. He doesn't throw them when you're in range that you could easily ankle pick him or easily shoot for a single or easily go for a double. He throws them from a range that's extremely unorthodox and they're extremely powerful. And obviously, a lot of Khabib's wrestling, the base is going to come from his legs, driving you into the cage, keeping you there, driving you into the floor. And who knows what happens if some of those leg kicks land? Who knows how it happens deep? Khabib's pressuring you into the fence. Justin's not going to be taking back steps. We didn't see that against Tony. We saw that against Tony, and he knows. The octagon is split into sort of three divisions, and they're sort of divided by black octagons, I guess, black lines on the octagon. If you pass that second black line, you're in trouble because that's Khabib territory. And Justin's going to be doing his best to stay there, right? Is he going to get taken down? Probably. It's a very high probability that in every single Khabib fight, there's going to be a takedown. But as we've said, what happens when he gets taken down? If people go back and watch the Conor McGregor first round, you'll notice that Conor did pretty well to keep Khabib where he was, Conor kept his back against the fence. He wasn't flattened out too badly, and he didn't take too much damage. Lots of overhooks, lots of hand fighting, and he did okay. Obviously, he lost the round, right? Obviously, and then he proceeded to lose the fight. But what he was able to do is nullify some of that advancement of position. Now, can Justin do the same? Can he get up? Who knows, right? Who knows? But I think that what we have here is we have a fighter that has power in both hands, that has a very different style of striking to Conor, one that's a lot more pressure-based. And, I mean, I think I agree with Jack, and obviously I agree with Sean, that this is the stiffest test that Khabib has faced. I mean, do either of you guys want to add any more technical details to those?
Yeah, it's also what you and Jack have both alluded to with like Khabib's personal circumstances at the moment, and it's coinciding with a time where Justin Gaethje could not be flying any more high. You know, like he's almost in the peak of his career while Khabib's got all these sort of troubles going on, and obviously the loss of his father is an interesting one. Obviously because of everything you said, Harry, about his dad was his coach as well as his father, and you know, played an integral sort of role in his training camp and everything else. But also in combat sports, like kind of historically, the loss of a parent has been a big like make or break thing for a lot of fighters. Like obviously the really famous one with Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson, which is like the biggest upset ever. That was after he lost his. But it was after Buster Douglas lost his mother. Yeah, that's right. That gave him the sort of motivation to go in there against the most intimidating guy in boxing and put on his best performance. So who knows what Khabib's going to do at this point. But yeah, I also agree with you, Harry, in terms of the lines in the octagon. I think Luke Thomas calls them like the tram lines or something like that. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I still think even with everything we said with the wrestling, the fight will be won and lost depending on if Gaethje can keep himself out of that Khabib territory, like you were saying. Yeah, it's a territory battle. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Because, and this is the other thing, is it's like the other thing is, if we look at probabilities, right? There is, in Khabib's fights, there has been 100% probability up to now that he gets a takedown, right? 100, he's taken absolutely everyone down.
T-Bow?
I mean, come on.
We can forget about T-Bow.
We already put the asterisk there, didn't we? We already put it there, right? Yeah. But in Justin Gaethje's fight, there is 100% probability that he's going to land some monster shots on you, right? So if we've got a 99.99999% probability of a takedown, and we've got 100% probability of some form of hard shots, we've never seen, people big up the Michael Johnson thing. We've never seen anyone land on Khabib, really. Not big shots that have hurt him and rocked him. Not really.
I felt Poirier landed some decent. I don't know if it was round 2. What round did he get finished in? 3?
3.
Yeah, it was round 2.
I remember at the start of round 2, he landed some decent shots on Khabib and had him flustered a little bit.
But I don't know, man. I think
it's different. It's different.
It is different. It's different. And even the styles are different, right? Like Justin's not a conventional boxer. And even for Khabib, you know, Justin's going to throw some conventional combinations and you can kind of get to an understanding of where they're coming from. But man, I just think it's an amazing fight. It's an absolutely amazing fight. And like Sean said, although there are a plethora of nuances to it, really this is a territory battle because it's not equal in any way, shape or form. It's not equal on the feet for Khabib and Justin. Clearly, Justin has far more experience and far more tools, and it's not equal in the grappling exchanges, right? But I mean, yeah, go on, Sean. You've got something else to say.
Yeah, no, I just thought Jack made a really good point about the Dustin punches that he hurt Khabib with, because I actually think there's a couple of moves, like boxing-wise, that Gaethje and Dustin use that are really, really similar. Mm-hmm. Especially that sort of shifting right hand. We've spoken about this with PT on before, Definitely. Where they overextend on the right hand and then hit them with the left in southpaw. And I think that's the shot that Poirier hurt Khabib with last time. And if it does, even if you say that Poirier and Gaethje aren't similar fighters, I think it still draws an important point that I don't think the high-level guys from AKA, and you can think of this with Daniel Cormier, Cain Velasquez, Khabib, they turn into completely different fighters if they're on the back foot, like completely different.
And this is my point.
Khabib, he's very rarely on the back foot, and this is the thing, but when Poirier put him there for a minute, Khabib changes, like the danger level goes from like 10 to about a 1, you know, it turns to absolutely nothing, which is important when you think of, you know, the Trevor Whitman stock of fighters. Like, he has coached all of them so that they can move diversely, whether it's backwards, forwards, side, you know, whatever. And that's been one of the biggest things that Gaethje's done in his game. Like, Gaethje is dangerous now, moving backwards as well. Whereas for me, Khabib, we saw it with Kane, you know, years ago, where the whole like non-sea level Kane thing. But when they're moved backwards, AKA fighters are a problem then, you know, they lose a lot of their sort of danger, I suppose.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a really, really astute observation. Do you want to add anything else, Jack, or do you want to move to picks?
Let's do the picks.
All right. Sean.
So, even though we've said everything about Gaethje's chances, I still think that Khabib will get him against the fence, and it's going to be business as usual. I'm not picking against Nurmi. Not now. Not ever.
So you've given me a pick, but you've not given me a method.
So it's going to be Khabib by conventional smash with an E, as you said before.
All right. So that's going unanimous decision, right?
Yeah.
All right, Jack.
No. Actually, I think you'll sub him in the 3rd or 4th round with one of those Dagestani rear nakeds with no hooks.
Yeah, it doesn't need them, mate. Just breaks your jaw. Jack, go on.
I am picking Gaethje to win by knockout in round 1 or 2. I think that Khabib can be a little bit predictable coming forward, and I think Gaethje's got some excellent tools. He's got that fadeaway right hand that he hits Cerrone with. He's got a wicked left hook, very good flying knees as well, and I think he's going to time either Khabib coming in or he's going to time the level change and get him out of there.
Very interesting. So I'm gonna preface this. I kept this back because I wanted to say it for my pick. I listened to Firas Zahabi break down the Khabib fight, right? And he gave 2 pieces. Somebody asked him, how would you build a fighter? If you were going to fight Khabib, how would you fight? And he said, I'd do 2 things. He said, in the center of the octagon, as soon as Khabib shoots, I'm hitting him with flying knees. I'm hitting him with double knees, right? And then he said, for us was like, I'm going to guillotine him. But, you know, fine. For us, has got a serious guillotine, that's fine. But then he said, other than that, when it gets to the cage, I'm doing my best to land elbows and those kinds of things. I'm sorry, that's Justin Gaethje territory. Like, I am sorry, that is Justin Gaethje territory. So my pick is, I think that it's a Gaethje round 2 or round 3 finish. The reason why I say that is because I think Khabib is a lot tougher than we think, frankly. Like, he doesn't take many shots. We've not seen him take many shots in the octagon, right? So I think that, you know, he's almost certainly durable. And I think that for somebody, like we saw with Tony Ferguson, right, that Gaethje can land well, but people can be durable. I know that MMA maths isn't a real thing, but either way, I'm going Gaethje finish in round 3 or round 2 or round 3.
I can't even bear the thought of it. I can't even bear the thought of it.
It will be sad. MMA is a cruel mistress, right? We remember Jake Shields losing his dad 2 weeks before he fought Ellenberger and then got whacked in 45 seconds. Like, Walt Harris earlier this year. Like, yeah, I don't. Khabib is maybe one of the strongest mentally in all combat sports, but yeah, I can't see how this doesn't affect him, especially with the other elements in his camp.
The other thing we have to think about here too, right, that is really like MMA god tier of level of it's going to be fucked up is Khabib said he's got 2 more fights, right? 2 more fights. And who's he going to fight after this? Who? He said, if Michael Chandler beats Islam Makhachev, then Michael Chandler's the #1 contender. Michael Chandler will get fucked by Khabib. Royally fucked. I honestly think so, right? I really do think so. And Sean's tilting his head, and you can, if that fight comes about, you can talk about it, Sean. But other than that, who's he going to fight? They're saying somebody special. Like, okay, it's not Conor, right? Unless Conor absolutely blams Poirier, it's not Conor. Who else is it? Who else? Like
Tony Ferguson after Tony strangles Michael Chandler.
Yeah, but I mean, Khabib said like Tony needs a couple more fights or like whatever it is, and then we're getting back.
It's got to be GSP then.
But Dana's already said it's not GSP, right? It's already said, but and who cares about Dana? Like, he's always fucking lying. But like, even if it is GSP, cool. But mate, the MMA gods are not going to allow Khabib to go 30-0. I just don't see it. I just do not see it. You know what I mean? And I think Justin Gaethje is the man. Let's fucking go. So, okay, we'll move on to another cracking fight, frankly. An absolute cracker of a fight, and that's Whittaker and Cannonier. So to give my short piece on this one, this really is an incredible tale of two stories, really. Whittaker, it's an incredible transformation story, right? Whittaker starts at 170, struggles at 170, right? His losses have come at 170, predominantly his losses have come at 170. We know that he had problems making the weight. We know that he was a bit chinny at 170, comes up to 185 and just murders everyone, right? Uriah Hall, get fucked. Brad Tavares, get fucked. Jacare, get fucked. 2 Yoel Romero fights, cool, bro, eat those. And then we go, and again, to just take me back to Justin, right? Justin and Khabib. You talk about MMA gods. They take him to the biggest UFC audience ever. Australia, his home country. And Izzy's like, yeah, cool, eat this left hook, bro. That's not fair. That's not okay, right? And on the other side, we've got Jared Cannonier, starts his UFC tenure at heavyweight, right? Loses his first fight. Second fight comes in against Cyril Asker at 65 pounds, no less, lads. Absolute monster of a gentleman. Takes a couple of fights at heavyweight, moves to light heavyweight, ends at middleweight, right? And there is no better performance from Jared Cannonier than the Jack Hermansson fight, right? Jack Hermansson is a well-known first-round finisher, right? Really, really good in the first round. Cannonier stuffed the takedowns. When he did get taken down, he rolled with it. There was some nice grappling exchanges, some nice scrambles, and he landed his shots, right? Tied Hermansson out and finished him in the second round, start the second round. Even when I was watching back the tape of Cannonier at heavyweight, he looks like a 185er moving a heavyweight's body around, right? There was lots and lots of athleticism, lots and lots of really nice, really good base striking, really good footwork, really good angles. And he just, he's moving 265 pounds around instead of 185 pounds. With Robert Whittaker, we know what's going to come, right? What's going to come is he's got a really good wrestling pedigree. Obviously, he was on the Commonwealth team before he had to pull out because of a fight and whatever. He's now supposedly revitalized, took some time off the sport, got back, fell in love with the sport again, is what he's saying in press conferences. We know that he's got that really nice karate blitz, and there's varying combinations that come from that karate blitz. Does that cause Cannonier problems? Maybe, right? Maybe. Because Cannonier is more of a 1, 2, 3 shot fighter rather than Robert Whittaker coming in and throwing 6. I kind of feel in some fashion this is a little bit similar to Jan Blachowicz versus Dom Reyes, right? A little bit in some fashion where somebody's going to come in, throw big combos and somebody's not. But yeah, those are my thoughts currently. Jack, what do you think?
So initially I was leaning towards Bobby Knuckles, just because I feel like he has more tools. And generally, I would say he's slightly more proven against, he's definitely more proven against the upper echelon of competition. 100%. Right?
He's been through a murderer's row at 185.
Definitely. But that is also part of the reason why I'm going to be picking Cannonier. I think that, I think that Whittaker's probably, I think his shelf life is running out. He's had those battles with Yoel. He's obviously taken the damage against Izzy as well. That Till fight on paper should have been a lot easier than it actually, how it unraveled. And yeah, I felt like there was some concerning points there from Whittaker, namely just how he's continuing to kind of blast into the pocket as his main way of kind of closing the distance, right? I think that Cannonier is fresher. I think he's probably going to be a little bit more hungry at this point as well. And yeah, I think he's probably gonna land on Rob, and Rob's once legendary durability won't quite hold up.
Sean, you're nodding.
Yeah,
don't do this to me.
No, I agree with both of you. I think it's an interesting one because they're both guys that have had a lot of success counter-striking, but also a lot of guys that have lost a lot of fights because of good counter-strikers. Like, I actually think at welterweight, it was Robert Whittaker getting countered quite a bit by wonder boy that sort of led to that reinvention of his whole style.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest difference between them, to be honest, for me. Like you said, Harry, like Jared Cannonier is very set in his Thai stance. He likes to sort of work from there. He doesn't like fighters like, you know, Dominic Reyes that make him close the gap and where his stance has to be sort of stretched out. Whereas Robert Whittaker is that sort of, for lack of a better term, the sort of bounce like strikers who sort of blitz in and out karate wise. And I think that's why Darren Till was quite a tricky matchup for him in a lot of ways, because, and maybe the same with Izzy even, just because they're both tall, very long guys. So it's going to be interesting going into this one with Rob not having that problem. But like Jack said, the X factor for me is just how long in the tooth at this point Rob Whittaker is and how much motivation he has when, you know, he may be the second best guy in this division, but it just so happens the number one guy, in my opinion, I think he has his number in Izzy Adesanya. So I'm really not sure on this one, to be honest. I think the striking for me, I think it could go either way. I could completely see Whittaker getting caught blitzing on the way in, and then we'd see like an early finish from Cannonier. You know, and equally I could see Whittaker sort of landing that really sneaky left hook that he's got people like Derek Brunson and stuff like that charging in with. I actually think it'd be good for Whittaker to use the wrestling a bit more in this one, to be honest. Like, even in Cannonier's fights where he's looked amazing at middleweight. Like, who else has fought between heavyweight and middleweight ever in the UFC? I don't think that's ever happened before, but even in the fights he's looked really good in with David Branch, David Branch managed to get a bit of top control time. David
Branch on top's a monster, though.
Yeah. You know, maybe he's better, but I really rate Whittaker's grappling, to be honest. So I think the key for Whittaker, because I think he is the more well-rounded fighter, is to mix it up a bit more in this one.
I agree. I mean, I think the thing to add to your point about Whittaker's grappling, nobody usually survives Jacare on your back, right? Usually when Jacare gets to your back, it's done. And Whittaker was like, cool, I'm just going to keep getting up. I'm going to keep peeling your hooks off. And now I'm going to knock you out, right? But again, that was Jacare before the Yoel Romero fights, before the Izzy fights. Like, I get the point about long in the tooth. I absolutely do. And I think to your point, like, again, it's a territory battle, right? Can Cannonier catch Whittaker coming in, or does he get caught when Whittaker comes in, right? Because the problem with Adesanya is when you come in, Adesanya's not going to be there, and he's going to catch you with something. The problem with Till is as you come in, you're either going to run into a left hand or you're going to run into a left elbow, right? Which one do you want? Neither is the answer. And we saw in round one with Whittaker and Till, he caught him with an elbow, right? He did catch the elbow. He did land it. And Rob was like, shit, okay, we're not doing that again. But your point, I also think is valid, is with Cannonier and Hermansson, you know he's just going to shoot for takedowns, right? There's not a ton of setups on the feet, whereas Rob can do that and has more of a conventional background of wrestling. And maybe we see that from Cannonier. Work against Cannonier. Though, I mean, yeah, your thing about Cannonier is the footwork is good. The Thai stance is good. I don't think he's taken too much damage, though he has taken knockouts at heavyweight, right? Those things are no joke. Heavyweight and light heavyweight knockouts are no joke. So we could well see something happen there. But let's move to picks. So Sean, if you can give me your pick, please.
Yeah, I still think even though he's long in the tooth, Whittaker is the second best middleweight in the world. So I'm going to go with Robert Whittaker by... this is 5 rounds, isn't it? By 4th round TKO.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's 3?
3.
Okay, unanimous decision, Rob Whittaker, then.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm going to sadly fade Bobby Knuckles and predict that Mr. Cannonier gets to his chin in round 1 or 2.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
So I want to add just something before I make my pick, and that's that I wonder whether Izzy's playing a little bit of mind games here, right? By saying openly to Cannonier, like, you're the dark horse, you're next if you go out and put on a good performance against Rob. A good performance were the words he used, right? Is he trying to add pressure knowing that, as Sean said, he's already got Whittaker's number? Is he trying to hike that pressure on to try and see Whittaker win? That opens up the door to Jan Blachowicz or whatever. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But I actually side with Jack. And I think that the rule book on beating Robert Whittaker is kind of made, right? And that's if you're a good counter striker, Wonder Boy, Israel Adesanya, you're able to time him coming in, Darren Till, you're able to time him coming in. And if you have a varied enough attack and you have enough weapons, then you can either win or put him away. And I think that Cannonier holds big power, right? Knockouts at heavyweight, knockouts at light heavyweight. He holds big power, and I think his striking is good. So I'm going with I kind of feel like it's going to be a late finish, to be honest. So I feel like I'm going to go KO TKO round 3. So we'll move on to arguably the best fight of the night. Alexander Volkov versus Walt Harris. Jack, talk me through this, please.
Oh, God. How can you set me up like that? I mean, it's heavyweights, isn't it? And I think that this fight is not really worth a lot of our time. I think simplified, this is very much a two
top 10
fight.
Heavyweighters. Come on.
Yeah. I think that Walt Harris tends to get it done early, and when he doesn't, he fades and either gets finished or loses a decision. Volkov is one of the more patient and methodical fighters at heavyweight. Kind of a attritional kickboxing style, very long and lanky, likes to use his reach. What will be interesting is that Walt Harris is actually one of the larger guys at heavyweight as well, and we'll be able to fight him within that range. But yeah, other than that, there's not a lot else to unravel around this one. Neither of them are particularly competent grapplers or have a preference to grapple. So I think it's going to be a classic heavyweight fight where it gets decided on the feet. And I know you're going to ask me for my pick in a minute. I'm just going to give it to you now so we can move on. But I am going to pick Mr. Volkov to take Walt Harris out in the later rounds.
I can't believe you're downplaying Volkov's grappling with that absolute clinical performance he put on against Fabrizio Verdum. I can't believe it.
He did sub Blagoy Ivanov back in the day, which is notable. But
it is notable. You're so rude.
Yeah, I am rude, but it's heavyweight, so I'm allowed to be.
It's fair. Sean, do you have anything to add about this absolute barn burner of a matchup?
Yeah, I think in some ways Jack could have just finished his analysis on their heavyweights and just put a full stop there and just left it. Alexander Volkov in particular I think he's a really weird fighter because obviously doing things like this, the breakdowns, you like to try and find a trend with fighters to say, certain ways they're good at winning, but this man has won and lost a fight in basically every way you possibly can. Like for a little bit, I thought he was like a come from behind snowball fighter, and then Derek Lewis did that to him, and he got absolutely, that fight in itself was just completely bizarre. So I really never know whether Volkov is going to do something that's, kind of cool, or whether he's just going to get absolutely battered. As for Walt Harris, it's a bit of a strange one. I think we've spoken about Walt Harris before when he was getting ready to fight Overeem. And I think he has really good, he comes from that Golden Gloves boxing. He has good pedigree for his striking. He has really, really fast hands for a heavyweight as well. But
super athlete, really.
Yeah. And I think he's really struggled to find a place for that boxing in his overall sort of MMA game. I think specifically his grappling and Alistair Overeem showed with other sides of the kickboxing with that head kick and everything else, he seems to have big holes in his game outside of his hands. So if he doesn't, like Jack said, if he doesn't win by stunning someone with his really, really quick hands, then a lot of the time he just gets absolutely smushed.
Well, you say a lot of the time. 100% of his wins have come by finish.
Yeah. That's
what
crazy.
More do you want me to say?
But, it's just one of them. With Alistair Overeem, he was doing really well until he wasn't, and when it starts going downhill, it's very rare that Walt Harris is going to show another trick or anything else. So I have no clue what's going to happen with this one.
Come on, but, give it to me.
I'm going to go with Walt Harris by knockout first round. I was going to say third, but it just won't happen.
He's such a fucking shill, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's such a shill. I feel like Volkov does have more ways to win this, right? He really does have more ways to win this. And what's funny is Walt Harris is 37 and Volkov's only 31. He's only 31 and he's had like a million fights. But I mean, my honest answer is I don't really care who wins. I mean,
heavyweights.
but like, think about it. Volkov's what, like ranked 6 or ranked 7? I think he's ranked 6 and Harris is ranked 8. Like, what are we doing, lads? Come on. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? But I mean, I'll make a pick. I will agree with Jack because I like him more. I will take Volkov by TKO in round 3. So if we can now move on to Sean's breakdown of Murphy versus my doppelganger. Obviously, Calvillo's fell out. So Sean, if you could take it away with that one, please.
Is that even the next fight on the card?
Yeah. No, it's Ankalaev versus the Cutelaba, but I want you to talk about that now.
Oh my God. Thank God. For a second, I thought I was actually going to have to give I completely don't care. I think, in answer to can Harry Powell heel hook Murphy, I'd say there's a pretty narrow chance, to be honest. I think that Murphy would have to be in a pretty poor physical condition, in a pretty dark place in the fight to lose by one of those quite poor outside ashy heel hooks, to be honest.
Wow.
If that's the breakdown for that one.
Wow.
No respect, Sean.
No respect whatsoever. I tell you what, next time I see you, I'm going to get Louis to single leg you into oblivion.
That's cool. If you get Louis, there's a lot of bad that you can do to me, to be honest. But,
exactly. So are you gonna make? We'll talk about this. Jack, give me an actual conversation about this fight, will you please? Obviously, it's a late replacement. What do you know about this lady that's coming in?
I know 2 things about her, actually. I know that she's from Uzbekistan, and I know that her Tapology picture is a picture of you as a 14-year-old schoolboy. And that is as far as it goes. And actually, a third thing, I know that she hasn't fought any notables, and Laura Murphy's on really good form at the moment. Yeah. So guess what's going to happen?
She's going to lose.
Write it down. All of our same picks. Lauren Murphy, certified whacking.
I like that Jack has just done a group pick for us all. I feel like
it's phenomenal.
That may be the better way for this podcast to go, to be fair.
I mean, look, the only thing we can say, right, is that the lady's name is Lilia Shakirova with a record of 8-1. She's coming in here fighting someone that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce their name. And she won by, it says punches, which is useful. So we have Jesus. I mean, what do you mean? She punched the lady, she fell over. Grand, perfect. That's the fight, I guess. Just to point it out there, if we look at her record, Jesus Christ. So, oh my God, let's talk about this record. I need to talk about this record. When her second fight, she fought somebody with 4 losses and 1 win. The fight after that, she fought a debutant. Then in her recent fights, she was 6-1, right? She fought someone that was 2-1. In the fight that she won by punches, her one to get to the UFC, she fought someone that was 1-1. It was her 9th fight. So yeah, that's some interesting matchmaking. Maybe that's some Jack Sear level investigation that needs to happen on that matchmaking. But okay, fine. So what we're saying is Lauren Murphy via whacking. Is that what we're going with?
100%.
Excellent. Let's swiftly move on. So we're now talking about Magomed Ankalaev versus Ion Cutelaba, the rematch. Jack, tell me.
The people's main event.
Oh, Jesus.
Their first fight was maybe the funniest minute in MMA history, whereby Ion Cutelaba darted over the cage during the name announcements. Didn't attempt to throw a shot, just kind of like lunged his whole body with his hands down towards Ankalaev, who swiftly body locked him.
It's like,
before the security intervened.
Do you remember in Harry Potter when they were escaping and they had to body lock Neville Longbottom and it just fell? That's what it reminded me of.
Exactly
It just fell forward into Ankalaev.
And then to add to the humour, obviously, Ion Cutelaba was pretending to be rocked and playing chicken. And the ref bought into it. He was so good at convincing. He was so convincing that even the ref bought into it, and obviously the fight was stopped horribly prematurely.
My life.
Ion Cutelaba is my spirit animal. There's a lot to love about this guy. He is
there?
ridiculous. He has 2 wins. His 2 submission wins are both by omoplata that was started from top position. Other than that, he tends to knock people out in the first round. And then he kind of quits in fights as well when he's not winning. And he just like, do you know what? I'm going to save this for another day. So yeah, I'm a big Ion Cutelaba fan. I think this is a pretty rough matchup for him. I think more people should be talking about Ankalaev. And I think that unfortunately the time where he lost 10 seconds of the fight to Paul Craig has tarnished his hype somewhat. This is definitely the best opponent he's fought, though, and definitely the most dangerous.
I disagree.
Ooh.
He fought Maxim Grishin when he was 6-0.
True. Grishin's very good.
He fought fucking Maxim Grishin, who was 23-6 when this motherfucker was 6-0 and smashed him. Knocked him out in round 4.
Can Grishin attack an omoplata from top position, though?
Can anyone?
Oh my God.
Point proven. Basically, I expect this fight to have all kinds of fucknuttery, just like the first one. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more out of it than 38 seconds. But yeah, Ankalaev is pretty much better everywhere. And as long as he doesn't get bombed out by a wild loopy Cutelaba hook, he should be good here.
Yeah. I mean, Sean, do you want to add something to that absolute beautiful breakdown?
Yeah, no, I think Jack's right. I think Ion really sort of changed the game when it came to.
Oh my God! Stop.
Game His game plan going into this fight was it's just amazing, because I actually believed he was hurt as well. He actually convinced everyone in the world, as well as Magomed, that the fight needed to be stopped. And then when it was stopped, it was like, I was acting, man. Like, just leave me be. But I think it could be fair. I would love for the same thing to happen again. That would just be, that would actually be the best thing ever.
Imagine Ankalaev does it this time and they set up the rubber match.
Yeah, if Ion was backstage and he was thinking, the one thing they won't expect is for me to do it again. And like Ion's corner and his strategists are just like, that's the way to go, man. Like, you do you. But yeah, I also think that Magomed is like probably the biggest sort of dark horse in that division at the moment. I think that triangle loss to Craig really sort of put him out of that sort of prospect sort of talk.
I don't know. I think he's still a super prospect in my opinion.
Oh, no. He definitely is, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that the focus is on Magomed the same way when he got into the UFC, because even if you look at his wins, he's had impressive wins. And I actually think that the fight against Ion, the last one, probably would have been another big breakthrough performance that got more eyes put on Magomed, that because of, Ion's sort of like strange game plan, I think it's almost done him a disservice where people aren't noticing Magomed again. But I think that, if he gets a couple of big wins, Magomed's a force to be reckoned with in that division for sure.
All right, let's give me some picks, Jack.
I am picking Magomed Ankalaev by unanimous decision.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev by TKO in round 2.
Okay, I'm going to go with my well-reasoned pick of Ion Cutelaba via Rolling Thunder in round 1.
Nice.
What's going to happen is he's going to walk into the cage and he's just going to Rolling Thunder him before the fight even starts and just blam him. That's what's happening. No, in all seriousness, I think Ankalaev in the second round too. I think Cutelaba is relatively tough, but is going to have nothing here really for Ankalaev in an actual fight. Yeah, that's it really. That's my thoughts. We move on, thankfully. Jesus Christ, what a shit fight that's going to be. Well, this fight is essentially Jack in a shell, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, if there was a fight tailor-made for Jack, it's this one. So we've got Umar Nurmagomedov versus Sergey Morozov. Jack, can you give me a little bit of thoughts on these, please?
Of course I can. So Umar Nurmagomedov is the actual cousin to Khabib. Saeed Nurmagomedov competes in the UFC tomorrow night. Despite having the same name, he's not the official cousin of Mr. Khabib. Umar has a lot of the similar skills to Khabib, especially when it comes to grappling. He's a kind of ferocious wrestler and top player. really unrelenting pace and some pretty savage ground and pound as well. Where he differs from his cousin is his striking arsenal. He's got a very dexterous kicking game, both with both legs. Likes quite flashy kicks as well. There's been moments in his fights where he's displayed wheel kicks. He fights in the southpaw stance, which means that the open rear leg kick to the liver is available as well. And yeah, generally he looks like a really, really exciting prospect. Was supposed to debut earlier this year against both Nathaniel Wood and Hunter Azure, and both of them men can count themselves lucky they didn't have to face him. In terms of resume, he has fought twice in PFL. And won both of those matches. He's kind of 12-0, unbeaten at the moment. Majority of the wins by decision, but he's also got 4 rear naked chokes as well. And yeah, it looks to be a future contender at bantamweight. Sergey Morozov was the M1 Challenge bantamweight champion. He actually won it on his second attempt. He initially fought Movsar Evloev, who is a really strong featherweight prospect at the moment.
He is.
And was choked out. Morozov is probably a little bit more proven against actual competition. He's fought Evloev. He's fought a gentleman called Josh Rettinghouse, who was once a challenger for Marlon Moraes' World Series title. He's 1-on-1 with Rettinghouse. He got blown out in the first round in 2016, and in his most recent fight, he actually avenged that loss and looked pretty good. In terms of a skill set, Morozov has a preference to strike, but is also a decent wrestler. Not too much in terms of a submission threat. Tends to win fights by his pace, and he's got a pretty nice counter right hand as well. But yeah, just generally quite a well-rounded prospect coming in here at 31 years of age. Ultimately, I think it's really, really hard to not side with Umar. He has more tools on the feet, and he's definitely going to be the better wrestler. We saw what happened when Morozov came up against the dominant wrestling force in Evloev, and in that he was basically drowned and eventually choked out. And I think something similar will happen here. The X factor being the same issues that we mentioned with Khabib's camp, and the fact that Morozov's got a pretty tasty counter right hand. So if Umar does get a little bit reckless coming forward, there's a chance he could get bombed out.
Sean?
Yeah, no, I think this is a really good fight. Obviously, most of the talk is going to be about Umar coming in, because I think out of the two, as well as obviously being related to Khabib, he has more of a sort of fan-friendly style. Like, I know loads of people are getting behind him as the striking version of Khabib, and he has a real nice sort of variety of kicks and stuff like that. But I don't think that Sergey, I'm going to butcher this surname, Morozov? Yeah, I'm just going to stay with Sergey. Yeah, just for the sake of anyone listening to
I
this.
just hate it. Like, you do this with Peter Yan as well. You're like, Peter Yan, where's the second E? Where is it? Where is it?
I can't help it. My voice just puts it in there. There's nothing I can do.
Uncle Yan is
with
really
Eastern European's name. But yeah. So with Sergey, I think he's looked really good, especially in his wrestling against that sort of M1, the M1 rope / cage that they have. Like him against Luan Fernandez was a really good fight, and I think people can get it on YouTube. And I could actually see him shooting in for those sort of body lock takedowns and everything else against Umar if things start getting tricky on the feet. But I'm kind of hesitant to buy into Sergey too much because of that. At the risk that I make the same mistake I made with one Roman Bogatov in M1 a couple of fights ago. He was also a guy that looked to have really good wrestling against the fence. And then, yeah, not only that, he turned out to be a psychopath as well.
He's already been cut.
He was cut on virtue of being a legitimate crazy man. But yeah, so I'm not really sure. I side with Umar in this. I think that when Sergey does go in to try and get those takedowns, it's going to be a similar thing to what we saw, like Jack said, when he went against Evloev. It's just a different league of wrestling with Umar.
I mean, the serious question I have for you in this fight is, when Khabib gets royally battered against Gaethje, are you going to use his cousin as your next Khabib shrine, or are you just
I'm gonna latch on to the closest Dagestani / boring folk style fighter as quickly as I can.
Excellent. Well, can you settle me with a pick?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Umar by rear naked choke in the second round.
Interesting. I actually have the same pick, Jack.
Yeah.
Put me down for the same.
All right. Oh my God, we've done it. I mean, we all had the same pick for Murphy, but that's because we weren't allowed anything else. Yeah, we'll.
I actually disagree with the Murphy one. I think she will manage to get that to a decision, even though she's probably outmatching the opponent. I disagree. I think Murphy will find a way for that fight to go the distance.
Well, look, I mean,
that's going to be the fight that puts people to sleep on the pay-per-view, isn't it? That's
Jack,
where everyone's going to stay up, get excited, and then all of a sudden, Lauren Murphy and Harry Powell come on your screen.
Harry leaves Woolwich and he's there fight. Oh God!
Yeah, I'm actually going to Fight Island today, so
nice.
I'll need to edit this on the way. But yeah, all right, excellent. So we'll move on, thankfully, to arguably just the worst fight possibly ever. We have Sam Alvey, who's arguably Sean's favorite fighter ever, and we have Un Jung, who is a Korean prospect. So Sean, can you take us away?
Well, I don't know where this thing has come from that Sam Alvey's my favorite fighter, but I do like him. I do like him.
Sake.
I like the smiling Sam gimmick.
This is why everyone hates you, just so you know.
And to be fair, in his last fight, I also like the fact that he's kind of like, well, he's from Team Quest, isn't he? Sam Alvey. And he is kind of like a throwback to those sort of fighters. Like, I think he's sort of
he just loses
in the wrong era.
Loads.
Yeah, and he's not very good, basically. But against Ryan Spann, I actually thought that ended up being quite a fun fight. And to be honest, I think that Un Jung will probably engage him in any brawl that Sam Alvey wants. And we probably will get a bit of a weird but quite fun scrap here, to be honest.
Did you watch, sorry to cut in, did you watch any tape on Un Jung?
Yeah.
Did you watch?
Mike Rodriguez fight?
Yeah.
Great.
It looked good.
But focus on that one.
Like the personal favorite, literally the guy that he fought before Mike Rodriguez, and I'll say his name in a moment, is arguably one of the greatest mentions in. Did you watch that fight? I know you've just seen it on Topology. Did you watch that fight? So Kadis Ibragimov was the fight.
We spoke about this.
And Kadis Ibragimov is one of the worst performances I have ever seen.
It wasn't.
Yes, it was. He had a man on his back, and instead of getting him off, he just wiped his hair back and smiled at the camera. What the fuck are you doing? Right? And that fight was absolute trash. Having seen Kadis Ibragimov,
it's so good.
Harry.
It was good because they're both terrible.
Come on. Kadis is the most happy to be there UFC fighter in history. There is not a moment, winning or losing, that Kadis isn't just enjoying every moment of the UFC experience. And to be honest, I think that sort of positivity is contagious, and I've enjoyed every one of his outings.
I'm going to end this podcast right now.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Oh my
as if
God.
It was Kadis.
It was Kadis Ibragimov. Have you watched the fight? Have you watched it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Sean.
Kadis basically just throws the kitchen sink at him and then gasses and then just walks into a guillotine.
That's exactly right. Oh my God, it's hilarious. Un Jung basically just gets absolutely fucking battered for 2 rounds. And then, Kadis literally has to be helped almost by God to walk back to his stool at the end of the second round, and then just falls into a guillotine. Oh, it's amazing. It's absolutely awful MMA. But yeah, sorry, Sean, go on. You were going to tell me something about how good Un Jung is.
But yeah, he loves it. And, this is Un Jung. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about Un Jung in the context of all UFC fighters, because then there's no doubt he is extremely bad. But this is Un Jung standing across the cage from Smiling Sam. I mean, I think that it will end up sometimes, Harry, if you get 2 fighters that, let's be nice, are a little bit lower down the ranks, if you get the right 2 fighters to match up against each other, sometimes something beautiful ends up happening.
Like Roman Bogotov.
No, that wasn't beautiful. That was kind of frightening at times, to be honest. But yeah, I think that something beautiful is going to happen here. Is it going to be good MMA? Probably not. There's a very small chance.
Jack, come on. I can't listen to Sean anymore. Come on, tell me.
Look, if this goes well, either it's going to look like
both fighters getting cut.
A double knockout. No, but if this goes well, it's going to be Mr. Jung sparking Sam Alvey early like he did Mike Rodriguez. Or alternatively, we get a replay of the Marcin Pacino fight where someone blindly walks into the pocket and Sam bombs him with a counter right hook. We all love that. That's a good win for us all.
And he smiles to the camera. Love it.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Smiles to the camera, little bicep pose. Fantastic. Goes kiss his wife in the corner, all that jazz. The downside, which is often the case with Sam Alvey fights, is that nothing happens. And that does happen quite a lot. I'm gonna pick Mr. Jung to bomb him out early, just because Mr. Alvey's getting old a bit. Jung seems like he's at least got a bit of speed about him. But yeah,
he's really speedy at getting smashed by Kadis Abrahamov for 2 rounds. That's what he's speedy at. Jeez.
I think I've been lulled in. I've been lulled by the beautiful right hand he hit Mike Rodriguez with. That's what's confusing me a little bit. Blurred my vision.
Sean,
I think. Is this my prediction now? My prediction is something special happens with 2 fighters that will probably not make it into the top 15 again.
Yeah, I need an actual pick.
Well, that is it. I think it's going to be a 3-round amazing war.
I'm not writing that down.
I'm sad that Kadis couldn't just be thrown in there
as like a third man, like a special really referee.
A really small team fighting championship where Kadis is just in there posing at the camera as he loses another 10-8 round. That's it. You can write all that down.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave your pick blank. Because essentially you've given me nothing. I'm also picking Un Jung to blast out smiling Sam Alvey in the first round, because let's be honest, both of them are absolute shithouses, and yeah, Un Jung's just a little bit younger, right? So yeah, that's where we are. Jesus Christ. I mean, at the start of this podcast, I said there were some really good fights and some absolute garbage fights. And here we are. So I'm going to move on to Liana Jojua versus Miranda Maverick, who's arguably one of the best names in the UFC. Like, just
that is a great name.
Miranda Maverick is such a phenomenal name. Yeah. And Fear the Maverick. That's a phenomenal nickname. I don't think it's quite as good as Bobby Knuckles or the Reaper. I think those are both arguably pound for pound in top 5 nicknames ever, right? I mean, you can't get better than Sean's nickname. Jack, do you know what Sean's nickname is? Sean's fight nickname.
Is it the Macclesfield single leg?
No, it's better than that. It's Sean Single Leg McGuinness.
Nice.
It is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That was really imaginative. Wow, I thought you were going to say just Jeff Hughes was my nickname. My nickname was just another person's name who you think I look like.
No, yeah. I mean, look, why would you have... Look, that'd be stupid. Your name would then be Jeff Hughes. Like, what's the point? Jeff Hughes. Like, it's such a fucking stupid name. Anyway, right. So, Liana Jojua versus Miranda Maverick. Miranda Maverick is young, right? 23, only 2 losses. One of those losses comes against Diana Burnett, who was far more experienced at the time. I really like what Invicta does with these ladies, where they put them in and they get them thoroughly competitive fights. I really like Invicta as a fighting organization. So we've seen something that we don't see too often, right? And that's finishes in female MMA. And Miranda Maverick has quite a few of them. She favors the rear naked choke, right? But there's a couple of arm bars on there as well, which are quite synonymous with female MMA. I mean, it's crazy though, really, when we watch female MMA and their arms just sort of bend 180, and it's really crazy to watch their super dexterous limbs. But there are some arm bars in there, but Liana Jojua is an armbar queen, right? Serious armbar specialist. If you go back and watch her fight against Diana Belbita, that armbar was beautiful. She caught the takedown, she rode up for the armbar, and Diana Belbita rolled, tried to stack her, and eventually Jojua finished it with a belly down armbar, and it was just really, really, really nice. There's also a heel hook on Liana Jojua's record, just because it's me, right? And I want to speak about heel hooks. But yeah, like 28 seconds in the first round, that was really nice if you want to go and watch that back. Where we saw, however, Liana really show some weaknesses was against Sarah Moras, who she lost to ground and pound in round 3 at that fight. And what it showed is that Liana Jojua is essentially just terrible on the feet, right? Just a distinct lack of head movement. There doesn't seem to be much pop in her punches. The setups aren't really there. What we see from Liana Jojua is that she sort of bombs forward and tries to get the fight to the fence and then get a takedown from there. If that doesn't happen, I mean, against Belbita, for instance, she was actually put against the fence herself before reversing and then getting the takedown. But look, I mean, I think that this is a fight that Miranda Maverick should be looking at winning. She reversed that loss to Diana Burnett by choking her out in the 3rd round. She's got a win over ex-UFC fighter Paul Gonzalez. And yeah, I mean, Maverick looks like a good prospect, right? 23, 7 and what is she? 7-2. Liana Jojua is 25, so again, you know, a decent enough age to be running the UFC. But I think this is a fight that Miranda Maverick can make a statement. Jack, go on.
Yeah, I'm all with you there as well. I think Miranda Maverick's got a lot more potential. Her game is really nice, very, very good wrestler, and just an all-round really nice grappler as well. Jojua only really seems decent as a submission threat and doesn't offer much else apart from that. As is with the case with a lot of women's MMA, unfortunately, there is always the X factor that a random armbar from close guard can be sprung at any point. But I think as long as that's avoided, Maverick should paste her from top position really. And yeah, I'm not picking someone who lost to Sarah Moras, unfortunately. So
wow, rude.
Yeah,
brutal against Sarah Moras. So Jack, if I can just get your pick because I want to move on from this fight.
Miranda Maverick by submission round 3 rear naked choke.
Okay, perfect. Sean, do you want to give us some thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think this is Miranda Maverick's fight to lose. Just like it was Belbita's fight to lose, to be honest. I actually think that Belbita was better everywhere than Liana outside of a closed guard armbar. So yeah, I'm gonna go Miranda Maverick by I'll go 2nd round rear naked choke.
All right, so you're following me. I'm going Maverick rear naked choke 2nd round as well. So we move on, thankfully, again to Phil Hawes versus Jacob Malkoun, which should be an interesting one. My thoughts on this fight are Phil Hawes is obviously Dana White Contenders Series, right? Took a few losses. We have seen that in the other Contender Series fight, he was suffered the viral head kick knockout against Julian Marquez. Okay, yeah. So yes, he was on the back of the really bad head kick knockout from Julian Marquez. And he's had, to be honest, the guys that he's fought, right? Like he's fought Andrew Sanchez in The Ultimate Fighter, and look, Andrew Sanchez looked amazing in his last fight. Other than that, he went out to Bellator, got a couple of stoppages, a couple of brave stoppages, and then he came out Contender Series and absolutely blammed some gentleman called Kadzimurat Bestayev, who I've not heard of before. But there we are.
Crusher.
Fuck's sake.
No, he's a can crusher. Trust me. That's my Eastern European report complete.
Oh,
he stamped it.
Yeah, that's a new segment, actually. The new segment is going to be Jack making an Eastern European report. But yeah, we turn to Jacob Malkoun, who trains with Robert Whittaker, as we know, big, 6'1", big monster. And we've spoken about this off air, but it looks like it's a little bit too soon, right? We're looking at 4-0 coming in against Phil Hawes, who's 8-2. To be honest, Phil Hawes is 31. Jacob Malkoun's quite young. Who knows, right? Who knows? The experiences with Phil Hawes, he's kind of had experience under the UFC banner anyway. Do I care? I mean, we're going to see what happens, I guess, right? Like, I don't really have much of a choice. But yeah, Sean, have you got any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think that Phil Hawes is an interesting one because I think he's already been through that stage in his career, whether he was rushed or whether he was hyped too soon. Like if you watch the Ultimate Fighter that he was on when he fought Andrew Sanchez. There's guys there that are literally talking about him as if he's going to be the next world champion and stuff like that. Like, he was being like unbelievably hyped on that show, and then ended up losing. So he's a really good athlete and everything else. And I think that he should just take this on experience, because he's like you said, he's learned a lot of difficult lessons along the way, I think, being so hyped. But yeah, I don't have a ton to say for this one, to be honest.
I think as well, the change up in camp, right? Going to Henry Hooft's Hard Knocks 365, that's going to help him round out the sort of the striking holes and to make him just a more competent striker. But Jack, have you got anything else you want to add?
Yeah, Phil Hawes obviously came in with a lot of hype, right, because of his wrestling background. Very good athlete. Was originally with Greg Jackson, now is obviously with Henry Hooft, as Sean touched on. I'm not bought in to his hype until I see him beat someone who's actually decent. I think that, he did obviously struggle when he fought Andrew Sanchez. He had a fight in World Series of Fighting as well against a pretty solid veteran, Louis Taylor, that didn't go his way. And then he obviously had the Marquez fight as well. But yeah, I'm not sold on his kind of top 15 potential until I start seeing him fight some upper echelon guys. With that being said, Jacob Malkoun, only 4-0, being brought in because he's Rob Whittaker's boy. From what I've seen, he looks good, but hasn't fought anyone of note. And yeah, I lean Phil Hawes simply because of the experience. He's fought at least on Contender Series and whatnot before, but very, very difficult to call at this point.
So what's your pick? Hawes by?
I will safe pick Phil Hawes by first round knockout.
I've gone the same. Sean?
I'll go Phil Hawes, unanimous decision.
Jesus Christ, a nice snooze fest. Excellent. Right, so we'll move on to Stefan Struve versus Tai Tuivasa. And Sean, come on, don't take too long on this. There's not much to say, let's be honest.
Nah, there isn't a great deal. I think, to be honest, for this one, whoever wins this fight, I think it's almost the UFC giving them a way to get out of the losing streak that they both sort of found themselves in. And whoever loses it is definitely going to get cut. I think that with Stefan Struve, he actually has gotten very far in the UFC, considering his sort of skill level. I'm not sure how much the sort of gimmick of, the tallest fighter in the UFC and everything else actually took him to get there. But you never really know what you're going to get with Stefan Struve. I think mentally he's had quite a few struggles over the years, especially after the Mark Hunt fight. And you genuinely don't really know whether, he's going to get... Usually if he gets pressured quite a lot, he does get overwhelmed. Like we've seen that in the Volkov fight. I think you could say that you saw it in the Mark Hunt fight and everything else. So, yeah, I think I'm probably edging towards Tai. I think I'm still have a little bit of faith that Tai, could get things together. Because I'm not sure if he still is at AKA, but... I know that the wrestling was like a big weakness for him for quite a while. And against Sergey Spivak, I mean, his get-ups were looking a bit better, but in terms of actually stopping the takedown in the first place, there seemed to be, not a whole lot of improvement. Either way, I think, unfortunately, Stefan's going to lose this fight, and hopefully it gives Tai a little bit of a pickup so he could get back to some exciting striking.
Yeah, I mean, Tai Tuivasa did really well to get up after he'd been head and arm triangle, didn't he? So, let's move on. Jack, have you got a pick for me?
Yeah, I'm picking Mr. Struve just because I trust his gas tank a little bit more. I actually thought he looked quite good early on against Rothwell. I'm picking Struve. I thought he actually looked pretty good quite early against Rothwell, which I can't actually believe I'm saying that, but I thought that was a decent striking performance from him. He's obviously light years ahead in terms of submission grappling. He doesn't necessarily have a way of getting it there unless he wants to jump guard like he did against LeVar Johnson back in the day. But that Sergey Spivak fight was pretty rough. So I am going to side with Stefan Struve to sub Mr. Tuivasa in round 2.
Sean?
I'm going to go with Tai Tuivasa by TKO in round 2.
and I'm going to side with Sean. I just think that Stefan's too old now. He's taking too much damage, and I think that Tuivasa is probably going to bundle on in and get that finish. Okay, so this one is actually a really good fight, a really, really good fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it's a good test and it's good to chat about. So Casey Kenny versus Nathaniel Wood. So Nathaniel Wood is obviously well-known prospect fighting at a GB top team under the tutelage of one Brad Pickett. Came out and lost to John Dodson at UFC ESPN 5 at the beginning of the year. Then came back and put on, a decent enough measured performance against John Castaneda. Here, though, we have Casey Kenny, who just looks like an absolute monster, right? And let's just go through his fights recently, right? Brandon Royval beats Brandon Royval, and we know that Royval brings the chaos, right? He then beats Ray Borg, beats Manny Bermudez, loses to Merab Debashvili just because he couldn't spend long enough on his feet. And he then one-arm guillotined Lewis Smoker, which is no joke. Smoker's a good black belt. And we then, have you boys watched this Haley Alatang fight? You haven't watched it? Did you watch it, Jack? Yeah.
Yes.
So Sean, after this podcast, go back and watch Casey Kenny versus Haley Alatang. Casey Kenny murdered this gentleman. How that guy made it through to 3 rounds is unbelievable. There was absolutely broken ribs in there. His leg was a mess. His face was a mess. Casey Kenny looked phenomenal. At 135 pounds, this guy looks like he's got serious power, serious striking ability. The scrambles look really good. His takedowns looked good. His takedown defense looks good. I mean, obviously, Merab Debashvili is a little bit different, but there's holes in his game to work out. I think this is a tough fight for Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel's known for being, obviously, he's got really heavy hands, lots and lots of finishes on his record. Here, Casey Kenny doesn't quite move like Dodson, right? He hasn't got that movement ability, and he hasn't got, the experience that Dodson did. And, as we saw, I think in round 1, Wood looked pretty good against Dodson and just, ended up sort of fading under the pressure a little bit and losing via that ground and pound. But I think this is a really, really, really good striking matchup that we're going to see. A really, really solid striking matchup. Jack, have you got any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic match and a real strong test for Nathaniel Wood, who was kind of blasted through some of the lower ranked fighters at bantamweight, and then has obviously had that lone matchup against Dodson. Kenny's been very much a surprise when he joined the UFC. I know he debuted on late notice against Ray Borg, had an upset win there. He followed that up with an upset win over Manny Bermudez.
Yep.
And it's proven to be like a really, really well-rounded bantamweight. I think that in this fight, you could probably say that Kenny is going to be the superior grappler. Although, interestingly, Mr. Wood has won most of the fights in the UFC by submission. But
he has indeed,
yeah, I think that at least offensively, Casey will be the better wrestler. And I also just favour his overall grappling. I think he ties his submissions nicely into his wrestling as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the feet, I give Nathaniel Wood a slight advantage, both in terms of diversity and also power. Yeah, I think Casey Kenny's striking has been a bit of a surprise over the last 2 fights. It was really it shocked me to see him rock Smoker, and then obviously he completely pasted Alatang. But I actually think that Wood's got slightly better footwork. I think he's a little bit quicker as well. For my pick, I actually think Casey Kenny's wrestling and dominance against the cage is what's going to sway the judges. But I'm expecting a really, really fun back and forth technical scrap.
So are you taking Kenny by unanimous decision?
I am indeed.
Okay, Sean, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with what you both said there. I think it's going to be really good because both guys, striking wise, are really decent, like volume strikers. I would give Nathaniel Wood the edge. And I think it's interesting actually that you both been talking about Casey Kenny's wrestling, because I actually think one way or one thing I think it'd be good for Wood to do would be to mix up some of his own wrestling in this fight. Similar to what he had to do against Andre Ewell. in that fight. Like he himself has really nice sort of wrestling against the cage, like some really nice body lock takedowns from there. And I think the one slight I could give to Casey Kenny is just that even though he's very good at getting back up to his feet, he does concede a lot of takedowns, and that was what ended up being his kryptonite against Merab. I'm not even going to go for that second name, but yeah, I think that ended up being the issue for Casey there. So I think even though I'm probably actually going to go with Wood for this one, because I think the power edge should show itself pretty early. I think it would be in his own best interest to try and get one or two of these takedowns, even if it is just the difference between edging 1 or 2 rounds.
So I'm really high on Casey Kenny, but I think I'm with you, Sean, on Nathaniel Wood. What's your pick for Wood?
So I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood, unanimous decision.
Okay. I think Nathaniel Wood's going to stop him in the second round. I think, as Jack said, he is... I mean, let's look at his Cage Warriors run, right? Cage Warriors. So we've got first Cage Warriors bout, knocks out Vaughn Lee in the second round. Then he demolishes Marko Kovacevic in the first round. Then he has that absolute war with Josh Reed that he wins in the first round. Then he absolutely smashes Luka Iovine with a beautiful left hook in the first round of Cage Warriors. Then he goes and puts on, 3 submissions and whatever. I think the power is there, and I think that Casey Kenny is going to come forward and he's going to learn. He's going to try and throw, right? And that is right up Nathaniel Wood's wheelhouse, right up there. So yeah, I think Wood via stoppage is my pick on that one. We move to Cowboy Oliveira versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. And Sean, if you want to take us away on that one, please, sir.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in this. I actually, I was sad when Zaleski dropped out, but I think that Alex Oliveira is a good stand-in, to be honest. I think with Alex Oliveira, he's one of those guys where he's super, super athletic. And I think before coming to the UFC, he had a style that was sort of equally attributes based. So it sort of relied on that athleticism. But I think he's had to learn quite a few difficult lessons if you're thinking of like the Gunnar Nelson fight or things like that, where when he got to a certain level, he couldn't just win by being this chaotic guy that sort of blitzed in and out. And I do think that we've seen a little bit of evolution with him. I still think that chaos is still his thing, but against Peter Sabota, I think there was definitely more of a measured sort of performance from Alex Oliveira in that one. Do I think that's going to be enough to beat Shavkat? I don't. I'm glad actually. Obviously, I put a message up in the chat before this because I was watching Shavkat, and I, as I always do, just immediately bought into him as a super prospect. And I was worried that I'd come onto this and then Jack would let me know that actually there was some Eastern European like mafia organization that had been fixing all his fights or something.
Allegedly.
But Jack gave the green light. So
yeah, the Eastern European report came good.
Yeah, it came good. It wasn't a can crusher stamp that came back, but yeah, I really like Shavkat. I think that there's a lot of shades of Rory McDonald in his style, especially in the way that he's quite measured. He works behind that jab, and he doesn't often overextend himself. It's like another guy. He's very similar to someone like Gegard Mousasi as well in that vein, where it's going to be quite hard to knock him out because he'll happily pick you off at a distance. But as you were saying to me the other day, Harry, he has got loads of finishes through doing it. I think he's very well-rounded. He's got decent takedowns, whether it's the lower body, and even if people sprawl there, he can chain up to his upper body takedowns really well, which is always something I'm sort of looking for in these prospects. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a fun fight. And I still think Alex Oliveira is a good test for his debut. But I think that Shavkat sort of controls the chaos in this one, to be honest.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm with Sean. I've been very excited about Shavkat ever since he was signed. It's been a little while now since he last fought. I think he's going to be on the shelf for nearly a year and a half. Yeah, sure. I think the comparison Sean made to Rory McDonald is really, really neat. I definitely see shades of that. And I think Alex Oliveira is the perfect dance partner for his debut. I think he's gonna push the pace. He's obviously very, very dangerous on the feet. and I think he's going to play into Shavkat's wheelhouse as well. It is a step up in competition. Shavkat hasn't exactly been can crushing, but he hasn't also fought anyone kind of significant of note either. And then you've obviously got the layoff to factor into there as well. But I think at 25 years of age, and from the skills that we've already shown, he's definitely one to keep an eye on.
Perfect. Well, Jack, do you want to give me a pick?
I am going to favour my Kazakh hero, and I think that he is going to sub Mr. Oliveira in the later rounds. Round 3.
And Sean?
Yeah, I'm going to go round 2, rear naked choke for Shavkat.
Nice. Team Shavkat.
I actually had the same pick as Jack. I have picked him sub in round 3. So, Jack, if you want to take us away with the final fight in the card, and that is Yoel Alvarez versus Alexander Yakovlev, please.
Got it. I will try and be as quick as possible. So aesthetically, this fight's going to be quite amusing because they're both noodly, very noodly lightweights. Yakovlev is like 6'3". I think Alvarez is something similar as well. I think it's going to be really interesting just to see how gangly they both look. In terms of actual skills, Alvarez is a potent submission threat, especially with chokes. And in his fight against Joe Duffy, he showed a nice new wrinkle into his game. He added that the very in form and favoured low calf kick. Mm-hmm. He's also got a really nice body kick as well. But looks to be a decent prospect. Yakovlev, on the other hand, has been around for a while.
He's fought everyone.
Kind of a grindy wrestler, decent from top position, and has some okay boxing as well, but doesn't tend to throw his hands as much as perhaps I would like. How I see this going is that on the feet, I think Alvarez should be favoured simply because he can fight at a range where Yakovlev can't, and he can use his kicks in his favour. On the mat, whilst Yakovlev probably has the advantage in terms of wrestling, we've seen how potent Alvarez's guillotine is. Mm-hmm. He's got a really good triangle, really good armbar as well. And I think that if Yakovlev does take it down that route, which he probably will, given what we know about him, I think he's gonna play into that submission threat of Alvarez. So should be a decent test for Alvarez. Yakovlev's a pretty good gauge to see where a prospect is at. Good benchmark. So I'm going to pick the Spanish prospect. I think Alvarez will latch onto a neck or an arm at some point and get the sub.
I agree. I mean, just before I give any thoughts, I think actually the sum of my thoughts is, let's just list some of the names that Yakovlev has fought. Rashid Magomedov, Paul Daly, Damian Maia, Gray Maynard, Kamaru Usman, Zach Cummings, and he's fought a US president, Roosevelt Roberts. So, I mean, that's a feather in his cap, right? I mean, he lost that fight, but it's the US president. What are you going to do? I think the most I took from this, right, is their most recent performances. Alvarez got the biggest win of his career against Joe Duffy. And although, Joe Duffy retired afterwards and it wasn't the Joe Duffy we were used to seeing, that name value still did massive things for Alvarez. On the other hand, what I saw in the fight via Alex de Silva, with Alex de Silva and Yakovlev, is Yakovlev essentially just got dominated for a little while. Alex de Silva with his top pressure. De Silva kind of gassed and then ran into a guillotine, right? Fine. His Roosevelt Roberts performance, again, he didn't look great, right? And Roosevelt looked really good. So, look, I mean, I take Alvarez as well. I'm not sure what method, frankly, but yeah, I take Alvarez as well. Sean, do you have anything to add?
Just the same basically. So I think Alvarez, I thought he looked really good against Joe Duffy. I think Joe Duffy's been on a bit of a slide for a while now, but I was still quite impressed that Alvarez managed to win by submission. And also, I'm going off memory here, but I remembered Alvarez looking quite a bit more powerful than Joe Duffy was on the feet, especially with his kicks, from what I can remember.
Yeah,
quite good low leg kicks, I think. So yeah, I'm heavily favouring Alvarez in this one, to be fair. So yeah, I think I'm going to go Alvarez by, I think he gets it done in the first round again by submission, I think.
All right, perfect. Well, look, those are the fights. Any final thoughts that you got for us, Sean?
I don't think so. I'm just really excited. I've given you. I opened the episode off with a terrible hot take, and I feel like I've just closed it off with an even worse hot take. My answer was yeah, it's all right.
Excellent. Jack, have you got anything useful to say to me?
Yeah, it's a pretty top heavy card, and by top heavy I mean literally just the main event. But there is also enough Eastern European guys to keep me engaged as well. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's a couple of standouts, right? For me, I think Nathaniel Wood's going to be a great fight. Rakhmanov's going to be a great fight. I'm excited to see Nurmagomedov's cousin. I'm excited to see Nurmagomedov himself, and I'm excited to go and fight Lauren Murphy. So
nice. Good luck with that, by the way.
Yeah, good luck.
You may want to work on those heel hooks, though. Yeah, it's a bit.
Mate, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to rearrange the salt and pepper pots. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. You're just salty because your brother's a better runner than you. Admit it.
Yeah, no, that is it.
All right, look, I'm going to call this one to a halt. Thank you both for your time, and enjoy the fights, and I'll speak to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.